let's say everybody boycotted Little Mermaid. Nobody went to go watch Little Mermaid. Guess what? That's going to force companies like Disney's to be like, okay, people obviously don't want it. The consumers don't want it. Let's stop making this.
Get on the track.
Welcome to another episode of the Common Podcast, where we speak upon common sense and realize it really isn't that common. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode. I appreciate all the support. If you're new to the podcast, the best way to get in contact with us, whether you want to feature in the podcast, pitch a topic, or if you're a sponsor trying to reach out, the best way is through Instagram. The handle is The Real Common Podcast. You can also participate in the live Q&As that we do on there. Also, we're starting up a reaction channel. That channel is called Roger Reacts. And behind the scenes, we're actually live on Twitch right now. That's going to be the first link in the description. Trust me when I say this is the best way to experience this live, because y'all also get to type in the chat and engage in the conversation. Without further ado, I'm going to introduce the host of the second podcast that I do, which is the Outlier Podcast, and that is Saul. Welcome to the podcast, bro. Welcome back.
What's up, guys? Real quick, I just wanted to ask you, who's we? When you say we're making a new reaction channel and all that, who are you referring to?
The community, bro. Because I don't do these things alone, you know?
Okay, I was just asking. Oh, by the way, if you guys are, I think it's worth checking out the Twitch, because a lot of bloopers go on. Like there's a certain blooper that I asked you to delete that that we still laugh about to this day. Someone in the chat probably gets it, but yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of things that happen behind the scenes that get cut out, and if y'all are interested in that, definitely tune in for that. But today, bro, we're going to be talking about some wokeism and how wokeism is taking over basically everything. It's taking over media, taking over the movies that are coming out, cartoons, books, basically everything. Commercials, mass companies are starting to buy into this wokeism progressive thing. And that's kind of like what I want to talk about today. Have you seen the new Little Mermaid that's coming out?
Yeah. How do you feel about that? The fact, obviously, if you don't know by now, the main actor, which is Ariel, is I guess a mixed color. I don't know what she is. I don't want to assume, right? But she's obviously not white, which
She's
is
black,
what Ariel.
yeah.
I think she's black. Which is what Ariel's supposed to be. She's supposed to be a white girl. So
Yeah.
what do you think about that?
Yeah, so I think it's super interesting because I think that there's obviously an agenda behind what's going on, right? And I think that I'm okay with having black princesses or Asian, Hispanic, doesn't really matter the ethnicity. But when you start to derive off the main message, or like the original message of what the cartoon was, and you start to push a different agenda, especially on the children, I start to see that being done a bit malevolent. And there's obviously a coding in there that is trying to like make you believe what I think you should believe. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And I think that the elites, or like these big companies, do this in movies and cartoons and children books specifically because that is the best way to take control of people's minds, is when they're young, right? It's called programming for a reason. Television is called programming for a reason. It programs you to think a certain way. That's why, well, what is it? 75% of all commercials is pharmaceutical. Like it's all programming. And so the reason why I have a problem with Ariel being black, it's not because Ariel is black. It is behind of what the agenda is, right? Why not just come out with a super original black princess? What's wrong with doing that? There's nothing wrong with doing that.
So you don't like the agenda they're pushing, or you just don't like that they're pushing the agenda in general?
No, because a movie or story without an agenda is just not a story. Like there has to be an agenda.
So you don't like the agenda they're pushing?
Yeah, I think they're clouding the agenda, right? Because these kid movies or stories storylines is meant to teach something, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like I went back to go watch Pinocchio very recently, a couple of months ago, because I had learned a lot about it, and especially in a book that I had read. And it's interesting, bro, because Pinocchio, if you watch it as an adult, what you see is that Pinocchio gains life, right, upon a wish from his maker, and his dad, would you say his dad, tells him, you need to go to school and you need to be a good kid. The first thing he does is skip school and starts becoming a bad kid, right? Then he runs away from home to join this island with a bunch of like troubled kids who don't want to listen to their parents, right? What ends up happening to those kids is that they start being a glutton, overeating, drinking alcohol, just bunch of troublemakers, right? Then what ends up happening is that they turn into donkeys. If you're a kid, you don't understand what's going on, right? Like, what? Like, why are they turning into donkeys? But here's the message. If you don't listen to your parents, you turn into a jackass, right? Because donkeys are referred to as jackasses. So in the kids' perspective, they're like, well, I don't want to turn into a donkey. I better listen to my parents, right? That's the whole story about Pinocchio, right? So things like that, agendas like that, I totally get, right? But when it starts to like, this whole wokeism, I think is dangerous, especially teaching it to kids. What do you think about it? What do you think about all that?
I don't really have an issue with them pushing that agenda. I mean, I think it's not a bad thing. I just don't like when they take an original something that's already established, right? Like Ariel, she was a white mermaid, right? So I don't like when they change it because it doesn't feel genuine anymore. They're doing it because they know that's gonna get them points with the public, which is the wrong reason to do it. So I just don't like, if they wanted to do that, they should have created an original character that was already black instead of changing one that was white into being black.
I have no problem with that either. But like the same thing that happened with Buzz Lightyear, right? Like I was super excited to see Buzz Lightyear because that's like Toy Story, especially in the our age. Toy Story was a big part of like us growing up, right? Toy Story was a huge thing. And so I was like, oh, super cool, right? We got Buzz Lightyear, but essentially is a prequel to what Toy Story is. And then you watch Buzz Lightyear, and then it's just so blatantly obvious what they're trying to like prove, right? You got the lesbian sergeant, which like maybe 10 minutes of the movie is just dedicated to her having a happy life with her wife and having
Raising
children,
a kid,
raising
yeah.
a kid and all this stuff. It's like, why does a kid need to watch that, right? Obviously, the agenda is that a black lesbian female can have control over the white guy, which is Buzz Lightyear, and she can also have a happy family, right? Which is like, if you look at it at a surface level, it's like, okay, well, like, why not, right? But it's like you're why, like, come up with something original. Why do you have to like mess with like storylines?
Well, yeah, I mean, I see that too, but I didn't mind that. I didn't think it was that big of a deal. I did notice it, right? I noticed when they made it so obvious that she was lesbian and had a kid and was like hugging with their family and like, oh, we're so happy and all that.
Yeah.
I didn't have an issue with that, but yeah, I mean, it's very clear that they're pushing an agenda. I don't think it's a bad one. I think if they're gonna do that, they should just not mess with the original stuff,
Yeah. I thought this was a great podcast to have you on with this discussion because you're from California. And so a lot of the stuff that is in California is very progressive. And so
Yeah.
You personally, even though you may not think it, you might have like a more of a progressive ideology.
Yeah, I do.
Yeah.
I find myself like believing or being so different from you and everyone
Yeah.
like all your friends, your family, your brother, like all of them think like you in the same way. And I see that, like, I'm like, man, like you guys are so different. And then I'm like, well, it's because you're from a different state, like you grew up with different ideas and agendas, I guess, if you want to go with that. But yeah, I mean, I see that and I'm like, man, what, like, but then I don't know if that's a good thing because I feel like sometimes I find myself questioning why I believe something because you believe the opposite. And that's why you and I make such a great pair, because we think differently, but I think we like to think logically as well.
Yeah.
And we always bump heads, and I think it's hilarious that we come from two different states. Like, I'm obviously a blue state, you're a red state, and we constantly fucking argue, and it's hilarious. But yeah, I mean, I'm trying to get to the point where I don't have bias in me anymore.
Hmm.
But yeah, I mean, that's part of it, right? Is growing up in California, and yeah, I'm obviously biased, as are you, right?
Yeah, so it has a lot to do with pride, but I like that you had mentioned how like you bounce your ideas, we bounce our ideas off of each other, and then we kind of question ourselves, right? Like, am I thinking correctly? Am I allowing something, maybe my pride that I subscribe to this, not allowing me to see both sides of the spectrum? It's interesting because everybody does this, right? And a lot of people are very narrow, or like they put the blinders on, right? And they don't allow any other idea in there. And they're very gun ho to any other ideas. But we all do this, and even though we don't like to admit it, is we bounce off of, I call it tribe, but basically we bounce our ideas off of other people, and whenever they don't align, we start to question ourselves more and more and more. This is why everybody tries to seek for approval. We do this a lot online. We're like, huh, and then we'll say somebody's
Yeah,
name, right?
yeah.
What we're doing there is we're seeking from approval to other people, even if they're not a credible source. We'll be like, Saul, aren't I right? And
Yeah,
then
yeah.
depending off of one person, if he or she says, yeah, you're right, it's like that's all we needed. We feel
Mm-hmm.
we feel fulfilled, and we don't
Yeah.
need any other more confirmation. Now, if that person says, nah, I don't know about that, then we start to question ourselves. I think that's super interesting how everybody pretty much does that.
Oh yeah, for sure. Everyone does that to a certain extent. But yeah, getting back to the Little Mermaid. Man, I just wish they hadn't fucked with that, because it's very it kills a whole, like, I don't want to watch it now, not because she's black, right, but because it's like it's not the original. It doesn't feel like it. Like, it feels like just based off them changing that single character, it's gonna have a whole, like, the whole storyline is gonna be pushing a certain agenda, right? And it's not
Yeah.
gonna be the Little Mermaid anymore. It's gonna be something completely different. And so for me, that kind of changes the whole vibe of the movie, and I don't know, I'm not interested in it anymore.
I feel you, and a lot that's happening to me a lot. I've never really been a big movie person, but this is just kind of like pushed me away a little bit more, just to see like
Yeah,
how
so
everything's changing like that.
yeah, so I know I say I'm not interested anymore, but I'm probably gonna watch it if
Same
I'm being
here.
honest.
No, same here because I kind of do want to see like the underlining, like I want to experience it first person to see what's going on.
Yeah.
Like I whenever I watch a movie or listen to music, I'm always looking for the agenda. Always. I even read a
Mhm.
book dedicated. I told you about the book. A book that's just dedicated to figuring out storylines and the agendas. And so after reading that book, I've really focused on that. And so it might have ruined movies for me because I don't allow myself to be spontaneously surprised by the plot. I kind of like, try to figure it out beforehand. I've always been that way, but it's just more enhanced now. Yeah,
Yeah, I'm the same way, bro.
yeah. People hate it because I'll predict like the movie's ending halfway
Yeah.
through.
Yeah. Exactly.
Listen, guys, are y'all tired of being fat and unhealthy? Look, I feel you. I've struggled with weight loss for a majority of my life, but I recently lost 32 pounds. I want to tell y'all exactly how I did it. I changed my diet. I ate a little bit healthier. I know how hard that can be with so much convenient fast food restaurants, convenient grab and go foods that you can just pick up and go. But I want to show y'all a way where y'all can stay convenient and eat a bit healthier. That's why I want to tell y'all about my good friends at Primitive Eats. It's a local, homegrown, small business that is a meal prep company. And they are derived off the paleo diet. Really quickly, paleo is just a natural way of eating food, taking out simple carbs, sticking to the earth. Okay. It is very good for you. It's very healthy for you, and you can support a local small business. It's always great. So if you're in the Los Fresnos, Brownsville, or Harlingen, San Benito area, go check them out. They have plans where you can buy for the full week. They will deliver it for you. Quick, easy, and go. And it's super delicious. They support the podcast. I support them. Go check them out. And if you don't want to get their meal plan, listen, check out their Instagram. That is Primitive Eats 90. I'm going to leave it in the description. If you're not going to follow them for the meal preps, follow them for their memes, because their memes are hilarious. Also, little quick fun fact, they do raffles, which I recently won concert tickets on their page. True story. Go check them out. I support Primitive Eats. Primitive Eats supports the podcast, and we love them. Go check them out. Going back to wokeism, though, so we don't only see wokeism in movies or Disney. I think Disney's probably the most popular one, just because Disney's just such a huge corporation. And Disney's even admitted to they're going to be dedicating 50% of their main characters to minorities. So you're going to start seeing Black, Hispanic, Asian main characters, gay.
50%?
50%.
Oh, shit.
Transsexuals, lesbians, gays, all that, right? So just look forward to that, because that's what we're going to see, 50% of those. If anything, we'll probably see a little bit more than 50 is what I'm expecting in these next couple of years.
Yeah, see, that's cool and all, but I mean, that's cool, right? But I just don't like when they do it on purpose, when they implement like a Black actor or an Asian actor or a Hispanic actor just because they're Hispanic. Like I think the person that acts the best and performs the best should get that job. I think that's just how it should go, regardless of race, because that's kind of like, it's kind of an insult to kind of give someone something just because of their race, right?
Okay,
like
okay. You said it perfectly, bro, because what they're trying to do is that they're not trying to, because the whole thing about this whole pushing this agenda is equality, right? It's not equality. What it really is equity. They're trying to make up for the disadvantages that the minority always had. So you're saying you're right, because beforehand, this is what the minorities will say. You can't become a famous actor because you're a minority. Only the whites get that. Right? Whites are privileged to those jobs, right? Now what they're trying to do is saying, oh, you're white, you can't have this job. We're only looking for minorities. And that's exactly what we're seeing in these mass companies, like these huge companies. They're starting to put people out there that like you have to be anything but white, basically.
Yeah. No, yeah, that's ridiculous. I think whoever does the best job should get the job. It's, I think the difference now is that, back then people weren't given the chance if you were a minority, right? Like you wouldn't, they're like, no, we're looking for a white guy. Captain America has, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But now there's so many different roles and so many different opportunities that's kind of even the playing field. So I don't think there's a need to purposely go out and pick a white guy, a Black guy, an Asian, a Hispanic.
Yeah.
Like, I think we're at the point now where there's enough roles that you just pick the best person and that's it. That would be the best way to do it, because, like I said, it's an insult to pick someone that's less of an actor because they're Black or Hispanic.
I totally agree with you, bro. Like if we're gonna take this equality route, let it be equality, and let everybody, regardless of race, religion, creed, anything, leave all that behind. Who's gonna act the best? Who's the best for the job? I totally agree with you. I think it's gonna take some years for us to get there, though. I think that these companies are gonna stay with this whole equity thing, where they're like, no, we really need to push these minorities forward. That way we can even the playing field.
Yeah, hopefully this is just this is like, I hope this is the peak of this wokeness shit, because if it gets worse in this, I don't see how that's possible, right? I hope we're at the top of the mountain, and slowly but surely it's gonna even out, and it's gonna be more, more equal, rather than equality, I guess. Just whoever does the best gets it, and that's that. That's
I,
where I hope we get to one day.
I keep saying that. I keep saying that we're gonna eventually tone this down. Like we're gonna start heading in the other direction and even needing the playing field. A lot of people don't believe me. I had a pastor on my podcast and he's like, "No, I don't think so. I think that you're too positive about this situation. I think it's gonna continue to like basically shit hits the fan." I was like, I don't think so. I think we pretty much even ourselves out, especially in America. We've seen it in history, right? Like where people were very progressive when the hippies were, in the 70s, hippies, like everything was super progressive and conservatives were all pissed, but that was the thing. And eventually things started to go a little like very strict, very conservative. It might have taken 9/11 or Manson, but it happened. It happened. People started to be a little bit more patriotic, more prideful in their country, and I feel like now we're on that side of being extremely progressive. I'm pretty sure we're gonna start heading back the other direction.
I hope so. Yeah, because if it gets any worse, I just don't see how there's gonna be a big clash if things get worse, right? Because people are already fed up with all this stuff. Like, look how many dislikes that trailer got. It got
1.5
over.
million.
Yeah, that's like on pace to set a record. I think the last one that got that many was like a Call of Duty trailer or something like that. For real. So I don't know, but yeah, obviously people are not happy with the fact that you're changing things to try to be inclusive, and it's obvious now, right? People are starting to hopefully see now that that's not the way to go.
I hope so, bro.
Yeah.
I did a reaction video for the new reaction channel reacting to Little Mermaid trailer. And if y'all want to see that, I'll leave the link to that channel down below. It should be up by the time this goes up. And they were putting little black girls reacting to the Little Mermaid, and they were like crying and like looking at their mom and saying like, "Oh, is she black?" and stuff like that. But you can totally tell that this is something that wasn't genuine. Like I said in the reaction channel, but they kept looking at their mom, and you can tell that whoever was recording was trying to like get them to react a certain way. Right. It was super weird to watch, but the stream's asking me to show you, but there's no way I can show you. But if y'all want to go check that out, definitely go check out that channel. The link's going to be in the description. Somebody says in the chat, Disney been woke for years. Andor has identified politics written and Kathleen Kennedy stink all over it. Welcome to the stream, by the way. And thanks for the input.
Yeah. So not to shit on Disney, but there's some woke things that they've done that I don't have an issue with, that I think is fine. They did it the right way, like Moana, right? That's its own thing. It's obviously what I don't want to be ignorant here, but I don't know what kind of ethnicity they are, but that's obviously something that was created to kind of give that ethnicity,
Hawaiian, right, or something like that.
Yeah,
Coco is another one of those,
yeah.
Right? Somebody in my stream last night mentioned Coco and how they wouldn't mess with Coco because, right? No, you're not gonna turn Coco white or black or Asian, right? Because it's already a minority.
See, and that's the way to go about it. Don't go changing something. Just like imagine if they changed, like, I don't know, like Buzz Lightyear into a black woman. Like, that's just not Buzz Lightyear anymore. You know what I mean? Like, that's not what we're familiar with, what we expect.
Have you seen all the memes where they're like changing the characters of like a movie? And like, so what's that movie like Green Mile where the slaves, the black guys, and they put like white actors.
They changed them into white.
Yeah, people? They changed it to white people. They're doing that to like all the movies. It's super hilarious. That's my favorite thing about this whole Little Mermaid is the memes that have come from it. It's hilarious, bro.
No, yeah, there was this one. I guess you could call it a meme. This guy commented. He was like, "What the fuck is this? It doesn't even look like they're underwater."
Yeah. Yeah, but then
someone was like, "What you wanted to look like?" And then it was like SpongeBob looking type of shit.
Yeah, that's super hilarious. But But yeah, so what I was gonna say is we're not only seeing this in movies, we're not only seeing this with Disney, we're seeing this like across a lot of big companies,
Oh yeah.
big corporations that can afford to take on a loss if they're going to take on a loss. I had sent it through you to Twitter, but you don't have Twitter. But I sent it to you as a reminder. Gatorade did a commercial with this super fat black chick drinking Gatorade, doing like Pilates. Is that how you say it?
Pilates.
Pilates. There you go. Doing Pilates. And like obviously people were outraged, like retweeting it, saying like, "What's this?" Like, because it's basically pushing that whole body positivity narrative, right? That just love your body. This is the pinnacle of like what a body should look like, right? Essentially, that's what Gatorade has always done, right? They
Yeah.
sponsor athletes because athletes at the highest level are the pinnacle of human capacity. But now they're changing that to where they have this extremely overweight, and it doesn't really matter the ethnicity, right? It's pretty much just the physique side of things. But adding an African American to it just makes it even a little bit more where they're trying to push the agenda of, we're equal here.
Yeah, so the thing is that because these huge companies are doing it, like Disney, these are leaders, right? So of course, people are gonna follow. You know, if Disney's doing it, smaller companies are gonna do it. I mean, you see it everywhere in
Yes.
commercials, everything.
So that's why I said these bigger companies are doing it because they can afford it. But what's actually happening, and I heard this in another podcast, is that the smaller companies are also doing it, but they're not making it. Like they're getting backlash, and people are just canceling them because they can get canceled. They're not at the
Yeah.
level of Nike, because Nike's doing it too, and I'll get in that in a sec. But Disney and all these other people that just Disney's just huge. Like at this point, it's going to be very hard to cancel Disney. But if I'm a movie producing company and I'm very small and I do something like that, people are going to be like, nah, you know, who are they to be doing all this stuff? Canceled. And, nobody's going to start watching my movies. But that's basically what's going on with the mass
Yeah.
companies.
Honestly, I'm not a fan of this whole movement that's going on with all this left wing bullshit, because I just remember when you mentioned Nike, I thought about I don't know if you've seen that, but they came out with mannequins that are like fat now. They're like fat mannequins, right? And then they dress them up and stuff. And I'm just like, man, they're trying to appeal and like please everyone so bad that they're coming out with fat model mannequins. Like
Yeah.
that's insane that they feel like they have to do that. I mean, I don't know what the purpose in that is. Um Obviously, right, you should love your body and all that, but you shouldn't be complacent. Like Lizzo was a huge
Yeah.
kind of leader for that movement, was like love who you are, like I love being this big and all that. But it's not healthy, it's not good. It's not good for you. You shouldn't do it. You shouldn't aspire to be that big. You should love yourself, but you shouldn't want to do harm to your body, and being that heavy and overweight is doing harm to your body.
Yeah, I think like the message that is getting pushed across is just be like you said, be complacent, be comfortable, don't shoot for a better, healthier
You're perfect where you're
life.
at.
Yeah, exactly. That's not what we want. It's not like you and I are fat phobic. It's not like you and I are
Well,
racist and
Well, yeah,
stuff.
well, a lot of people don't know. You and I used to be super overweight, both of
Yeah.
us. Obviously, not to that point, but we were both of us overweight. Obviously unhappy and stuff. But yeah, I mean, it's not like we're some people that are like talking shit over. We've been there. We
Yeah.
understand what it's like, and it's not good to be complacent at all, because
Yeah.
then you'll never change. You'll never be healthy. You'll never want to be better.
Yeah, I think to you and I, it's pretty like that's kind of like duh, that's common sense, right? Like, but I think we kind of take that for granted because you and I, like you said, have experienced that, so we know how we felt when we were overweight. I think like the pinnacle of confidence is being able to look at yourself in the mirror naked and being proud of what you look in the mirror and just feeling like okay with yourself, right? And
Yeah.
I know that's what motivated me recently to lose weight. It's like I would look at myself in the mirror just to take a shower and I'd be like, dude, this is not you. This is not what you should be at. You know what I mean? And it would like mess with my head. And you know, I knew what I was capable of. And the fact that I wasn't there and it was me that was holding myself back really made me feel like a piece of crap. And I'm sure that's what a lot of these body positivity people like Lizzo actually feel behind closed doors. They're not as happy
Yeah.
as they
100%.
proclaim, right?
100%. Especially being a big star like her, no pun intended. Obviously there's a certain pressure to being that famous and that public with you know, everything you do. So I'm sure she gets a shit ton of hate comments and stuff like that. So there's for sure, I guess, some pain behind all that positivity, if you want to call it that.
Mm.
Um, but yeah, it's you're just masking something that you know she's not completely happy with herself. She's trying to mask it and hide it and pretend.
Mm.
Um, no one's gonna be happy when you're, you know, unhealthy and that big.
And nobody's going to want to be around you either. That's just the truth. You know what's interesting is that you and I pretty much are not extremists. Like we're pretty much like we're cordial. We're cordial human beings, and we're able to understand both sides of the spectrum, and we understand that there is a balance in between. But what I think is that extremists cause other extremists to act out impulsively, and this is what I mean. So right now that we're seeing a bunch of different wokeism in the mass media, we're seeing the other side of the spectrums where super conservative, super racist people, super fat phobic people display the uglier side of themselves and cause a war essentially. And that's why there's like a bunch of people going at each other on the internet, especially Twitter. I know you're not on Twitter, but Twitter gets crazy, bro.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I don't understand where. I don't understand why the extreme people are the ones that are heard. It's always there's like you know, it makes every side look bad because the left side is like screaming like all this, you know, uh, positivity, like fake positivity, whatever, and then you have the right people just talking shit and like putting people down, and it's just like there's no one in the middle is really heard because, you know, the extreme sides are so loud
Yes, yes.
that
And it's
you don't
crazy because
really.
the extremist people are the minority. They're not even the majority.
Yeah,
They're the
yeah.
minority. But
They just make the most noise, is
but
what it is.
but us as people, we're kind of drawn to the extremists. Like we can't lie about that. There's actually a recent study, you know, and I had a podcast about it. I think it was on yours about dating dynamics. I don't know whose it was on, but there was a recent study done about how if you want to get a woman's attention, you have to be an extremist in your temperament, right? Because you don't want to blend in with all the other guys. You want to really stand out. And so like if you're passionate about something, be extremely passionate. Like do not suppress yourself because you feel like, "Oh, I'm going to look like an idiot because I'm super passionate about gaming per se," right? And
Yeah.
it's like, "No, be yourself, stand out because that's when you're going to separate yourself from the group and women are going to notice you." I know that's kind of off on a tangent, but that just goes to prove that extremists always get the spotlight.
Oh yeah, 100%. You know, that's why kids throw tantrums when they don't get something they want, right? Because
Yeah.
they know all that damn noise they make is gonna get them hopefully what they want. You know, that's the same reason why people protest and do all this stuff. You know, to hopefully get things into their favor.
Yeah, and that is exactly why in the workforce, the loudest people are also get hurt too, right? If you just do your job the way you're supposed to do it and you don't complain, you're not the snitch, you're gonna get looked over, right? But if you're a complainer, then people are gonna know who you are, right?
Yeah.
Or
Yeah.
if you're like the snitch, right? Like if you're the kiss ass to the boss, people are gonna know who you are. The people in the middle
Yeah.
really go unrecognized.
Yeah. So we talked about this before as well, as like if you're a good worker that doesn't say much and just shows up, does their job, you're less likely to get a promotion than someone that
Exactly.
not as good as a worker, but is really vocal about, hey, I did this, I did that. Like, I am I doing good? Like, obviously that's not the ideal situation, right? But if you're quiet and you're to yourself and you're a good worker, you're less likely to get the job just because you're not really demanding attention like the
Yeah.
other people.
And that
So
happened
yeah.
to you recently, right? Because they had passed up a couple of months ago. They had passed up a promotion on you because of somebody who was not even competent. Didn't even last. They didn't even last a few months, and then they were
I,
trying.
ho- I, yeah, I hope my coworkers aren't watching this because a lot of my coworkers watch the Outlier podcast,
Yeah.
and so I'm hoping that they're not watching this one.
Well, I wish I could say I care, but ever since you said something on your podcast that I didn't want you to say, with the truck flipping over,
Oh yeah, well,
so I'm not
yeah,
gonna cut it out.
Oh, by the way, that reminds me. Let me get this out there before I forget. I know it's totally off topic, but a while back, Roger and I had placed a bet on Conor McGregor, and I basically betted against Conor, saying that he was going to lose, and obviously Roger, being the Conor fan he is, bet for Conor, right? So he ended up losing, of course, right? Everyone knows Conor's a loser. Um, so the bet was that he has to do something extremely embarrassing on the podcast. So we can either do that on the Common Podcast or on the Outlier Podcast. It doesn't really matter. But I need you guys to help me decide what his fate will be in that embarrassing activity. So I don't know what it could be. I'm thinking like the only thing that I could think of that would be, I guess, entertaining would be like a challenge, right? Like a spicy challenge or something of that sort. But yeah, just wanted to get that out there. So
And
hopefully
we can do whatever is suggested when you come to Texas, if you come to Texas.
yeah, I plan on being there in December. Hopefully, we'll see.
Yeah. Okay. I'm gonna read a couple of comments here because I need to catch up, and then we'll keep it up from there. Look at the Kyle Soller and Dennis interview for Adore, and her character development was described as how she was surrounded by inept, lazy, slouchy, corner-cutting boys. I don't really know what to make of that. Lizzo's been working out. That's crazy. She's gonna get a bunch of hate. Like, what's her name? Adele. Remember when Adele got a bunch of hate
For losing weight?
for becoming hot?
Yeah, like imagine. I don't understand people. Like, why would you hate on someone for being healthier and a better version of themselves? Like, you could tell, like, and not even just that, but all the work she put into getting to that. And you're gonna put her down and say you're not a fan of hers anymore because she's doing better.
Yeah.
Like that, you don't sound like a fan. You sound like a hater. Like I don't know how people's brain works. Just because you can't do the work and get to that point does not mean you should hate on someone that can. You should respect and honor that person for doing something that you can't. But obviously that's not how things work. People love to hate.
Yeah, imagine if Lizzo just came in a couple of years just super hot and she started getting a bunch of hate. I see it.
Oh, and then losing all her fans because all her fans are just like her.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can see that.
I think that her fans, I don't want to say her fans, but I think a lot of people that subscribe to that ideology are incompetent and they want an excuse why they're not successful, right? It's like, because everybody knows that physique wise there's body types, and some people, the lamest term is big boned. You're not really big boned, right? But your body type gains weight a lot quicker than the other body types, right? And what you have to understand is you have to work a little bit harder. A lot of people, they don't want to work harder. What they want is they want an excuse. Oh, look at Lizzo. Lizzo extremely successful even though she's fat. that means I can be super successful and happy and proud and prideful. And
Which is all true, right?
yeah.
It's all true. You can be those things if you're overweight. You just shouldn't find that as an excuse to not be better, to not be healthier, to not be skinnier, I guess.
And you shouldn't try to push that to be the model for everybody else.
Yeah, or for people to agree with you.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's just not true. Like I'm so thankful I never had that perspective into my weight, because I was always very ashamed of my weight, and I was very very down on myself for how I used to look.
Yeah.
So for that for me was, fuel and motivation to get out of that. So thankfully I never had that perspective, I guess.
That's super interesting, because my two next topics for the podcast is going to be fat shaming and bullying. And that kind of goes in together about what you just said. But I'm super excited for those. I'm going to read one more comment here. Does it come to the point where companies like Disney's and all the other big players struggle financially because of its various wokeisms within its product/content for it to bring about change? I think yes. And the reason I think yes is because these big companies, they flow with what people think, right? They're, at the end of the day, their main priority is revenue. They want the most money, right? And so what they think right now that is working is wokeism, right? We want to be inclusive with people because that's what's going to bring the dollar bills in. Once something gets 1.5 million likes, and if let's say everybody boycotted Little Mermaid, nobody went to go watch Little Mermaid, guess what? That's going to force companies like Disney's to be like, okay, people obviously don't want it. The consumers don't want it. Let's stop making this. And I think that's what it all comes down to.
Yeah, I mean, just alone with the dislikes that they got, I guarantee you they're gonna think twice before changing a major character like that again. They're gonna have a hard time justifying doing that again because of all the backlash they're getting right now.
Yeah.
Or maybe, I don't know, right? It's hard to imagine that that's what they would want, because it is a lot of publicity, right? But it's not the good kind. It's but still.
Yeah. Or they could piss off like some super, because what's out there, Star Wars. Imagine they like switched up Star Wars. I'm pretty sure that there would be a bunch of pissed off people.
Yeah, I've never seen Star Wars, by the way, but yeah,
no,
I know.
Same here. But the fan base out there is humongous,
it's huge.
bro.
Huge. Yeah, everywhere I go, I see like a Star Wars sticker or like a lightsaber or a Yoda, like on people's cars, on their bottles, their gym bags. Like people love that shit, and I've never seen it, so I'm like the 1% that has it.
Same here, bro. I maybe seen one full. That's it. I don't even remember it, but
yeah, I probably saw like 10 minutes of it when I was a kid, and I don't remember.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But anything else before we close this? We've been about 41 minutes in.
No, other than just make sure you guys come up with an embarrassing exercise for this guy to do, and we'll make him do it because he owes me one. And yeah,
definitely. Also, make sure y'all go check out Sawood's podcast, which is the Outlier Podcast. If you see that sign behind him, for the people that are watching the video, I bought him that sign, but it's just a little bit too bright for the camera, so he doesn't have it on right now. But go check out that podcast. It's only on YouTube. We've been hitting some bangers over there. So if y'all enjoy our conversations, we do a little bit more flagrant, provocative content over there on his side. So go check that out. For the new listeners, again, you can find the podcast on YouTube, Spotify, and almost anywhere else that you can find podcasts. If you want to pitch a topic, feature, or reach out, the best way to do that is through Instagram. The handle is The Real Common Podcast. Before I go, he also has an Instagram, The Outlier Podcast. Without further ado, guys, I appreciate y'all so much. Make sure you subscribe or leave a 5-star rating on Spotify, and we'll catch y'all in the next episode. Peace.
On the track.